Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is going to be my review for Bates Motel, Season 2, Episode 10, the season finale, The Immutable Truth. And unfortunately, I was pretty disappointed by this finale. Now, before I say that, I will say, it was not a bad episode. It really wasn't. Was it as bad as the Glee Season 4 finale of last year? Hell no. Hell no, because that was like the worst finale I've ever seen. This was nowhere near as bad as that. Was this as bad as Bates Motel, not Bates Motel, as Episode 5? No, it was not as bad as Episode 5. However, it was quite disappointing because nothing really big happened. I mean, things happened in this finale, yes, but there was no cliffhanger in this episode. I like where the show's going, I will say that. I like where it's going. There were some things I wish they would have done differently, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But let's get to the episode. The beginning of this episode, I love the beginning of this episode. I thought it was really good. Norman is still in that box, and the rain is falling, and Dylan is on the search for Norman, and so is Romero. They both somehow find Norman. We didn't see how they found him or anything. Dylan tells him what is going on, Romero tells him to hop in, and they head out to attempt to find and save Norman. So I thought that was definitely really big. And Romero finds Nick Ford's dead body upon entering the house. Romero comes across a man named Ben in another room who responds that he doesn't know who Norman Bates is. And, that's one of the people that's hiding, that's holding Norman hostage, and Romero hits him, threatens to shoot him if he doesn't tell him what he knows, and this was awesome. Dylan is shouting for Norman. Norman begins to hear the calls. He's very weak. He manages to call back. Romero is now outside, joins Dylan, tracking down where the screams are coming from. They find Norman, pull him out. Dylan holds on to Norman for dear life, and shortly after, Norma rushes into the hospital to see Norman. Dylan is there with him. Norma learns that Dylan found Norman. She expresses her love for him, and, one of the great things here is Norma and Dylan have this conversation. She finally admits to Dylan that she loves him. That was really well done, because if you remember, the whole reason that Dylan left Norma was because he's like, Norma doesn't give a shit about me. Norma doesn't give a shit about me. And I don't even know if you're lying to me right now. I'm out of here. And I thought that was definitely really well done. It was a good way to close that sort of Norma-Dylan tension. Because now we know that Norma really does truly care about Dylan. And, I thought that was a very well done scene. So Norma's there as Norman wakes up. She attempts to calm his fears. And when she returns home with Norman, they're greeted by Emma, who has a lot of questions, but of course Norma doesn't leave any room for questions or for her to speak to Norman, because she knows that Emma's planning to leave, so she's like, why should I give a shit what you have to say? Bye-bye. She has an entire story ready to go, quickly shuffles Norman off and gets him basically gets him to bed rest. And Norman's at the grocery store, and here comes probably one of the most unnecessary scenes of the episode, because I didn't give a shit about this character, I didn't give a shit about this storyline, and Norma sees Christine. And Christine attempts to keep going, but she hears Norma apologize. She cannot hold back, blast her for everything she's done to her family after they did so much for her. She reminded her of how she helped her when Norma needed it, and would not listen as Norma tried to downplay all the horrible things she said to George, as being a result of being angry. Christine's not having it, calls her a train wreck. I just thought, honestly, Christine and George were so unnecessary this season, and I thought that whole scene was completely unnecessary. I really thought it was unnecessary. I mean, I understand why that scene had to be in there, but seriously, I just thought it was completely unnecessary. So Norman comes down for dinner, and Norman asks what's wrong. Norma shares her confrontation with Christine, and Norman confesses to his mother. And basically, he does tell her that he may have killed Miss Watson. He says that he started to recall things when he was in the box. It forced him to see himself having visions that told the story of what happened. While Norma tells him not to say such things, he continues on that they have to face the truth. Norma gets very angry, screams at him, and then continues to peacefully eat her dinner as she instructs Norman to do as well. I mean, that is not what I thought was going to happen here. There was literally a scene in the promo where Norma's like, get out of my house. That did not happen in this episode. It didn't happen. I was expecting for Norma to go apeshit on Norman, and she did, but I was expecting her to kick him out of the house, because we saw that in the Season 2 promo. That scene never happened. It never happened. So, whatever. So Norman's back upstairs, digging around in a drawer. He pulls out a gun. It seems he's considering it seems he might try to kill himself. That's what it looks like he's about to do. Because he looks at the gun in deep thought. And after spending the night in a rocking chair in Norman's room, keeping an eye on him, Norma's keeping an eye on Norman, and she's up early at the office as Romero arrives with the information on the polygraph test Norman is supposed to take. This next scene I loved. I love this next scene. I thought this was very well done. Norman finally calls down to Emma, asks her to bring up a book he left downstairs, and Norman asks Emma about her quitting. So Emma explains how, she doesn't really have a choice. She's been feeling like no one gives a shit about her, and she says that she doesn't share anything with her, and he tells her that there was a reason he wasn't sharing anything with her, because it's not something that should be shared. And he told her that he needs to tell her, because he feels if he doesn't tell her, she's gonna leave, and he doesn't want her to leave, obviously. He admits to her how Norma was raped by Caleb, and Dylan was a product of the rape. So Norman tells Emma how much they love having her there, and she vows to never tell what she's been told and agrees to stay. Now, keep in mind, we're 20 minutes into the episode right now, and barely anything has happened. I mean, that scene was very well done, but barely anything has happened. This next scene, though, a lot happened. I love this next scene. Zane and Jody are talking on the phone. Jody tells Zane to come over so they can discuss their plans, but once the camera shows the entire room, it's obvious that Romero and Dylan are put her up to the call in an effort to get Zane to come. So, as they wait, the power goes out, and Romero tells Jody and Dylan to wait while he goes to see what's going on. Jody goes downstairs, and Zane has a gun to Jody, and he kills Jody cuts him. And, basically, Jody cuts him, Romero shoots him, and later, he and Dylan put together the story of what happened. So, Jody's dead, and Zane is now dead. So, when Jody died, it was like, kill Zane, kill Zane, kill Zane. I wanted him to die anyway, but anyway, when Jody died, I was very surprised that Jody died, because I thought Jody was going to stick around for next season, but I guess not. What I do like is, what they're building up here. Basically, what they're showing is that Dylan is now going to be the next drug lord, basically. He's going to be in charge of it, and him and Romero are going to sort of have this, buddy cop thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to go, because this time, Romero will have his back no matter what. Romero tells him that he's going to let Dylan off the hook, wants to give him a chance by not even mentioning he was with him. He doesn't want Dylan to tell anybody about this, and he basically is just going to tell him, you're in charge now, but I'm going to help you, and I like where that's going, because I thought that was going to be very cool to see. Honestly, I thought Romero was going to die in this episode. He didn't die, and I was surprised. Later, Norma meets with Dylan, and she tells him about Norma's admission. She tells him about her fears over the polygraph test, and Norma explains that she wants to leave to Montreal and wants to take him and Norman with her. So he's very shocked at this, because he didn't expect to ever, live with Norma again, but he's invited to go with them, and she explains that she loves him and apologizes for how she's treated him in the past. I love that scene, because, again, we finally saw that Norma does care about Dylan, and I love that personally. I thought that was great. Dylan hugs her, but tells her that Norman may need mental help and suggests he go to an institution so he can get help, because he wants to take him to a mental institution. And he tells Norma that if she really does love him, she needs to get him help. She hugs him again and cries. And when Norma arrives back home, though, Norman's not there. He's left a note, and basically sees a gift on her bed with a note, and she's scared at what it could mean, as it sounds like a goodbye, and she's basically afraid that Norman's gonna kill himself. And when Norma asks Emma where Norman is, she explains that he told her he was going out for a walk in the woods, and then he just left. And Norma is able to catch up to him. He has a gun. She runs after him, and he runs away. He falls and hurts himself. She's able to catch up to him, and he tells her that he's bad and wants to kill himself. And I mean, honestly, that whole scene was great. I thought that was a fantastic scene, the way they did that scene. And he tells her she cannot stop him. She's able to get the gun away, and begs him to stay with her so they can walk through things together because she will surely die without him. And he seems in shock, just taking in everything. And honestly, I thought that he was going to kill Norma in this episode. I thought that's where we were going because the thing on A&E said the end is near. So when I thought they said the end is near, I thought that meant that he was going to kill Norma in this episode, and then the next season would be the next 10 years with Norman, trying to get by without Norma and then slightly going crazy, basically. I thought that's how we were going to end this, but no, that's not what happens. After this happens, I liked how they did, what I liked is that I thought it was very, very weird from here, because all of a sudden, Norma and Norman, they're sitting at the table, they're eating breakfast, and you just see them, like, perfect and everything, seems like everything's good, and then they arrive for the test, and Norma is being Norman's being questioned very heavily about things, and he is asked several questions about lying. He either says, have you ever lied to anyone? And Norman says yes to every single question. He says, have you ever lied? Have you ever stolen anything? Have you ever held information? And then he's asked about Miss Watson, and when Norman's asked whether or not he killed Miss Watson, in his head, he sees Norma, who tells him that you didn't kill Miss Watson, it was actually me. And, because she did it, and because it really does make sense, because in Season 1, if you remember, Norma told Norman, don't go through with this, in his head, so it really does make sense as to why he is seeing that. It really does make a lot of sense. At first, I was like, what? But now it makes sense. This gives him the ability to pass the polygraph test, because knowing he himself did not do it, he could say so without lying. But the thing is, he said no, but the thing is, he kind of lied to himself, because in his mind, it's his mother that committed the bad acts, but then just then, Romero shares the good news with Norma, who is shocked and relieved to find out he passed the test. They go over to their new apartment in Montreal, they go over there, and then the very end of the episode is Norman staring at, he's just in a dark room, and he does the famous psycho stare. So, that's how the season ends. And I was a little bit disappointed by how it ended. I really wanted a big cliffhanger, and we really did not get that. There are a couple things I would have wanted from this episode that we didn't get. I would have wanted a really big death. Either, there were two people I wanted to, for Norman to kill. Romero or Norma. As much as I love those characters, I wanted Norman to kill somebody major. Either Romero or Norma. Because because Romero was, because I think the way they should have done this episode is Norman should have realized, holy shit, I could get into really big trouble for what I'm doing. I don't want anyone, to tell anyone about this, so I'm just going to kill Romero. Or he kills Norma because he's had enough of her. I thought that's what was going to happen, and the promo made it look like that's what was going to happen, but that did not happen in this episode. Also, I would have wanted a little bit more with Dylan and the drug war. We did not get enough with that. We got one scene with the drug war that kind of just came out of nowhere, and then it just ended, so that whole thing is done, and I was not really happy about that. This felt more like a series finale than it did a season finale. It really did. Because, basically, everything is over. Everything is over. And now, they pretty much have a blank page for Season 3. However Season 3 is going to be, it's going to be very creepy. What I do like is now, Norma is terrified of Norman, and, she doesn't know what to do. I am thinking that Season 3, Norman is going to kill someone major, because the way that it ended in this episode with Norman staring, like doing the famous psycho stare that Norman Bates does in Psycho, doing that, I think definitely it's going to make a very interesting, Season 3. I am looking forward to Season 3. Of course I'm not going to stop watching the show. This was not as bad as the 5th episode, because, it had stuff that actually made sense. There was one thing that was just random. Norma and Norman just started randomly dancing in this episode. What the fuck was that about? That was so weird. The Christine scene was completely pointless, in my opinion. I hated that scene. It was completely pointless. Emma staying. I'm glad Emma decided to stay. But, what's going to happen next on the show? Is Norman going crazier? I think Norman definitely has gone a lot crazier. But he kind of lied to himself, because he did technically kill Miss Watson, even though it was Norma that did it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Dylan Romero, I'm seeing them working together in the next, next. What do you think's going to happen there? Norma is pretty terrified of Norman. What's going to happen? I think there's going to be a lot more. Also, I can't believe I forgot this. That scene where Norma tried to convince Norman not to kill himself. She kissed him. So definitely the incestuous relationship is going to be, there's going to be a very big, I think there's going to be more of an incestuous relationship next season, because as we know, he did have an incestuous relationship with his mother, in Psycho. So I'm definitely thinking that that's going to happen in the next episode. I mean, not the next episode, the next season. I'm very surprised the season's over. It's only been 2 months, and I wish they would have done 13 episodes instead of 10, but oh well. Whatever. But that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I didn't hate this episode. I didn't love the episode. I thought it was a good finale overall. I liked a lot of the stuff in it. I really liked the Dylan and, Norma confessing to Dylan that she does love him. Norman telling Emma about the whole, Norma being raped. I was happy we got that. The only thing I would have wanted was, what the fuck happened to Bradley? We have no idea what happened to her. We don't know if she's dead. I would have wanted to see more of at least like a Bradley cameo or just a mention of her. Because we got a mention of everything else, but no mention of Bradley. It was like those first 2 episodes of Bradley were pointless. That's what it felt like to me. But that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. And overall, my opinion of this season of Bates Motel, not as good as the first season. Definitely not as good as the first season, in my opinion. Season 2, the second half was definitely a lot better than the first half of the season. The first half, there were only like 2 great episodes. But the second half, things really picked up. And I really enjoyed the second half more than the first half. Second half was really, really great. First half was not so good. First season was definitely better. I think the season finale of the first season was a little bit better than the second season finale, but that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Glee. So, see you for that. Bye.